All right. Andy Ruiz said that he was ready to quit boxing because he was broke just a year ago. Thanks to Al Haymon in the PBC, his dreams came true. He's the first Mexican heavyweight in the world. And that's why I believe that it is time right now to put Al Haymon in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's talk about that in this video. All right. Look, man, a lot of people make comments on this channel about me being on the payroll of the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, and I'm not. Never given me a dime. In fact, anytime I try to put up a video of theirs with some highlights of their fighters, they immediately, Al Haymon Promotions, immediately takes the money from the video if I do it. So I have absolutely no commercial here for Al Haymon and the PBC. But when a fighter like Andy Ruiz, you see what happens with Andy Ruiz. You see where Andy Ruiz was in his career. You see where Luis Ortiz was in his career. You see where Guillermo Rigondeaux was in his career. And you see an organization that consistently helps fighters pick up the pieces, put them in a good position, and take these guys to not only secure their family financial futures, but also put them in positive positions in the boxing ring to succeed. Man, it is a beautiful thing. So for Andy Ruiz to say he was given an interview and he talked about how just a year ago that he was broke, how he wanted to leave the sport of boxing, but then, and now he is where he is. Now, if you just look at what happened a year ago for Andy Ruiz, that's when he signed with Al Haymon in the PBC. When Al Haymon, my understanding is that Al Haymon bought out Andy Ruiz's contract from Top Rank. Now, if this is the case, that Al Haymon bought out the contract from Top Rank of Andy Ruiz, this is another example of a fighter who had signed with Top Rank, Floyd Mayweather Jr. being the biggest name of all of them, that left Top Rank and wind up being placed in absolutely fantastic position and wind up being a huge winner because of that move. Terrence Crawford, listen to me, Terrence Crawford. That is why I'm a big supporter of Al Haymon. People that are familiar with this channel know that I do a lot of videos about business-related topics in boxing, because that's just something that I happen to have a little bit of experience with. And it's also where I find that I bring the most value when I talk to people about the sport of boxing. And as of late, largely in part because of the conversations that are carried on in the marketing tactics of Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn in their attempts to market Anthony Joshua, there's just a lot of conversations that go on about how much money fighters are making, rematch clauses, rehydration clauses, all those type of subjects they just come up. I never really intended to talk about that stuff on a boxing channel. People that are familiar with my boxing channel from the beginning would know that I really started off my boxing channel trying to do highlight reels, which is why I'm so familiar with Al Haymon and their policy of allowing you to use clips of their fighters as long as they take the revenue from it. So anyway, Al Haymon, with this victory over Andy Ruiz, has got to be considered one of the most successful, most influential boxing people, business side boxing people in the history of boxing. This man has not only has some of the biggest pay-per-view events in history with the Floyd Mayweather Jr. fights and the Manny Pacquiao fight. He also has constructed a system where a lot of fighters who would not have been, who were a lot of excellent American fighters who would not have been featured by other boxing businessmen, allow them to survive, to prosper, allow them to be seen by the boxing world. And honestly, man, it's really made for what I believe we're going through right now, which is a golden era in boxing. This is, and I know that some people might not agree with me that this is a golden era in boxing, but I think that it really has a chance to be that, because there's two divisions that really make boxing tick: the heavyweight division, the welterweight division. And right now you have some of the most competitive fights and high profile fights that we've had in years in the heavyweight division. We also have that same scenario going on in the welterweight division. But the reason why that those things are being able to be created, in my opinion, is because the PBC is willing to sign fighters that Top Rank wasn't willing to sign or promote, that being Andy Ruiz, fighters that Golden Boy Promotions were willing to sign but not heavily promote, that being Deontay Wilder. They basically made, what is that proverb? Whatever, the castaway rock and made it the cornerstone. Basically, he took the rock that was thrown away and made it the cornerstone. Now you have in the welterweight division, you have Errol Spence Jr., you got Sean Porter, you got Keith Thurman, you got Manny Pacquiao. All these guys are able to fight one another. Mikey Garcia moving up to fight Errol Spence Jr. All of this stuff is made for absolutely terrific boxing conversation and has really piqued the interest of boxing fans. Same thing for the heavyweight division. Right now, Al Haymon has all of the heavyweight belts, and from two fighters that were the castaways. Deontay Wilder was with Golden Boy Promotions, and Golden Boy Promotions did not feature Deontay Wilder. Andy Ruiz was with Top Rank. Andy Ruiz was not featured with Top Rank. But you take those two fighters, you get put in a good situation underneath Premier Boxing Champions, and now they both have between the two of them all the belts in the heavyweight division. Now, there's obviously a lot of really great fighters in boxing that are not included in the PBC. Okay, I'm not trying to say that the PBC and Al Haymon are everything in boxing. Top Rank has great fighters, and Vasil Lomachenko. Orlando took his O. I can't say Orlando. I can't say Lomachenko. I got to say Lomachenko because Orlando took his O, but he's a great fighter. Terrence Crawford's a great fighter. Anthony Joshua with Matchroom Boxing is brought a lot of interest to the heavyweight division. Clearly, you've got Tyson Fury, who's now with Top Rank and with Frank Warren. But the glue that is making all this stuff go around in the major divisions are the PBC fighters, because they have the most of the PBC. They have the most of the fighters, and they have most of the fighters in those premier divisions. But what he did with Andy Ruiz is why I'm saying, man, that this guy has got to be considered a special type of businessman. Now, I don't know whether it was foresight or whether it's just luck, and he's got a strategy where he's going to pick up every fighter that's good and see where he can mix him and match him and give him a chance. Whatever the case is, it's working. It's working very, very well. It's working very well for boxing, and it's working very, very well for the PBC. So when I see guys like Steve Smoger in the Hall of Fame, you see guys like Bob Arum in the Hall of Fame, you see guys like Jack Kearns, the old, the manager back in the 1950s, manager for Archie Moore, manager for Jack Dempsey, manager for Joey Maxim. You see those guys in International Hall of Fame. When you see guys like, I think that Jimmy Lennon Jr. is in the Hall of Fame. You see these type of guys in an International Hall of Fame. What I say is, man, let's cut to the chase. Because I would really like to see I would like to hear Al Haymon actually say something. And I wonder if they inducted him when they induct him the International Boxing Hall of Fame, whether or not he's going to actually show up and give a little speech. Because as a true fan of boxing, and I am that, regardless of what people want to say about whether, I'm a Wilder fanboy or I'm an Errol Spence Jr. fanboy or a PBC fanboy, or whether I hate on Anthony Joshua, whatever. I'm a true and real fan of the sport of boxing. And when you see greatness in the sport of boxing, I think that it should be acknowledged. And Al Haymon is definitely an all-time great businessman in the sport of boxing. If you look at what he's doing right now between Showtime and Fox, that's half of the major networks in the United States boxing that are almost exclusively promoting and working with him. And you saw with the Andy Ruiz that he's something a little bit different than what we typically see in boxing, in boxing managers, promoters, advisors. He's not a crook, right? He's not a crook. You have Jack Hearn, for example, who's in the Boxing Hall of Fame, who represented both Archie Moore and Joey Maxim, was responsible for an 80,000 to a 90. I think he was responsible for a 99.1% split. Whatever it is, where the main guy gets 81,000, and where Joey Maxim got 81,000 for his fight. Now that's back in the 1950s, so that's a lot of money now. Joey Maxim gets $800,000, and Archie Moore gets $800, and this guy makes it to the Hall of Fame. What you see in Al Haymon is the exact opposite, where you see guys like Luis Ortiz, a guy that was signed with Eddie Hearn in Matchroom Boxing, who got screwed over. He comes to the PBC and now gets a shot at the heavyweight title, and looks like he's going to get another shot at the heavyweight title. You got Guillermo Rigondeaux now, who's got screwed over by Bob Arum because he wasn't the marketable type of fighter. Now he's getting consistent. He's getting consistent fights. You get, again, the guy that made me talk about this particular situation. You got Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz was the rock that was thrown away that became the cornerstone of the heavyweight division, along with Deontay Wilder. So, look, I had to say this, man, because as I reflect upon this, the PBC is a reflect upon Al Haymon. You know what they say, man, just sometimes, man, you got to celebrate these guys that you have and appreciate greatness when you have it, when it's actually happening. Give the guy his flowers while he's alive, and just acknowledge that this guy is great for boxing, despite what a whole lot of people had to say about him trying to fight him every step of the way. And he might just be the greatest part of Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s legacy, that he took his influence, worked with Al Haymon, and the two of those guys kicked off something that is probably one of the greatest boxing organizations in the history of boxing to date, Premier Boxing Champion. But once again, I ain't getting paid a penny by the PBC to say this. This is just me being a fan of boxing and saying, look, man, this is an absolutely excellent thing that we got going on. Hopefully it can get better with some great fights between the PBC and Top Rank. The rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, the fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford. Hopefully those things can happen, and we can have that golden era, man, that we're all looking for. But you never really know it's a golden era while you're in it. It's almost always that you recognize that you were in one when it's done. Like in the 1990s, when that welterweight golden era we had going on with Trinidad and Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya and Ike Corte. We really didn't know. I didn't really know that that's what was going on until years later, when you don't have that and you look back and say, man, those are some really great fights. So anyway, that's my take on it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.